The smell of stale coffee and regret hangs heavy in the air of a 24-hour diner at 2 a.m. For 24-year-old Amelia Evans, it was the smell of survival. Each wiped table, each forced smile was a small payment on an ever-growing mountain of debt, her sister's medical bills. She believed her life was a repeating loop of exhaustion. But on a rainy Tuesday night, a single phone call would shatter that loop forever. A voice on the line spoke of a rare blood type, an emergency, and a life hanging in the balance. Amelia had no idea that the blood she was about to give wouldn't just save a stranger. It would irrevocably rewrite her own destiny. The fluorescent lights of the Daily Grind diner hummed a tired, buzzing song that had long ago replaced music in Amelia Mia Evans's life. It was 2 to 17 a.m. on a Tuesday, and the rain was lashing against the large pane-glass windows, turning the neon open sign into a blurry, bleeding watercolor. The diner was empty, save for a lone truck driver nursing a black coffee at the far end of the counter, his face illuminated by the glow of his phone. Mia moved on autopilot. Her feet ached in her worn-out sneakers, a dull throb that had become a familiar companion over her last 3 years of waitressing. She swiped a damp cloth over the Formica countertop, the scent of bleach and grease clinging to her senses. Her mind wasn't on the streaks she was leaving behind. It was 1,000 miles away, in a sterile room at St. Jude's Children's Hospital, where her younger sister Chloe was fighting a battle Mia couldn't win for her. Cystic fibrosis. The diagnosis had landed like a bomb in their lives when Chloe was just 8. Now, at 16, Chloe's fight was getting harder, the treatments more expensive, and the hospital stays more frequent. Their parents were long gone, leaving Mia at 24, as the sole provider, caregiver, and pillar of strength, a pillar that felt like it was crumbling into dust. "Another refill, Hon?" she asked the trucker, her voice raspy with fatigue. He grunted a yes without looking up. As she poured the steaming, bitter coffee, the phone behind the counter shrilled. It was an unwelcome sound in the dead of night, usually a wrong number, or Sal, the owner, calling to complain about the previous day's receipts. Mia picked it up. Daily Grind. "Mia speaking. I'm looking for an Amelia Evans." A woman's voice said professional and urgent. "Our records indicate she might be working at this number. This is Patricia from the Red Cross Blood Bank connected with Northwood General Hospital." Mia's heart gave a nervous flutter. "This is she, Ms. Evans. My apologies for the late hour, but this is an emergency. We have a critical patient, a multi-vehicle accident on the interstate. He's lost a lot of blood and requires an immediate massive transfusion. He has O-negative blood, but he also has a rare antibody combination, something called anti-KPB. Your profile was flagged in the National Donor Registry. You're one of only 3 compatible matches in the entire state, and the only one we've been able to reach who is within a 30-minute drive of the hospital." The world seemed to slow down. Mia remembered donating blood during a college drive years ago, filling out the extensive paperwork, ticking boxes she barely understood. They'd told her then that her blood type was rare, a universal donor with a twist. She'd never thought about it again. "A car accident?" Mia stammered, looking out at the rain-swept street. "Yes. It's a matter of life and death, Ms. Evans. Can you come to Northwood General right now? We can have a car for you in 10 minutes. Mia's mind raced. Leave work. Sal would kill her. The diner couldn't be left unattended, even with just one customer. But a life was hanging in the balance. It was the same desperate gamble she faced with Chloe every single day. How could she say no? Mia, everything all right? The trucker had finally looked up, his brow furrowed with concern. She held up a finger, her mind made up. Yes. Yes, I can come. Tell me where I need to go. She took down the details, her hand shaking as she scrawled on a napkin. After hanging up, she walked over to the trucker. Sir, I am so sorry. This is going to sound crazy, but there's a man's life on the line. I have to go donate blood. It's an emergency. Your coffee is on the house. Everything is on the house. Please just lock the door behind you when you leave. The man whose name she now saw on his jacket was Earl. Stared at her for a long moment. He took in her tired eyes, her frantic energy. He nodded slowly. You go on, kid. Don't you worry about this place. You go save someone. The world needs more of that. Tears pricked Mia's eyes. She offered him a grateful, watery smile, grabbed her thin jacket from the hook, and burst out into the stormy night, leaving the humming lights of the diner behind her. The hospital was a stark contrast to the diner's grimy comfort. It was all bright lights, antiseptic smells, and the hushed, urgent footsteps of people in scrubs. Mia was whisked away to a private room, her wet jacket taken a warm blanket draped over her shoulders. A kind-faced doctor, with a name tag reading Dr. Anya Sharma, explained the process. You're doing a wonderful thing, Amelia Dr. Sharma said, her voice soothing. We're doing what's called an apheresis donation. It allows us to take a larger, more concentrated volume of red blood cells. It will take a bit longer, but it will give the patient his best chance. Mia just nodded, her gaze fixed on the sterile bags and tubes. She didn't ask who the patient was. It didn't matter. To her, he was just a person, a life teetering on the edge, just like Chloe. As the needle went in, she squeezed the stress ball they'd given her and thought of her sister. She channeled all her fear, all her hope for Chloe, into this one act of anonymous kindness. 2 hours later, drained and lightheaded, she was sipping orange juice in a recovery chair. Dr. Sharma came back in her face, etched with relief. It worked, she said, placing a hand on Mia's shoulder. He's stabilizing. You saved his life tonight, Amelia. There's no doubt about it. I'm glad I could help. Mia whispered, a wave of profound relief washing over her. The patient's family has a foundation. They insist on compensating you for your time and trouble. Mia held up a hand, shaking her head. No, absolutely not. I didn't do it for money. Please, just tell them I'm glad he's okay. Dr. Sharma looked surprised, then smiled a genuine, admiring smile. As you wish. We have a car ready to take you home whenever you feel up to it. Mia nodded, pulled her thin jacket back on, and walked out of the hospital without a backward glance. She didn't know the patient's name. She didn't know his face. And she certainly didn't know that she had just saved Alexander Sterling, the reclusive 34-year-old billionaire, CEO of Sterling Enterprises, a man whose world was about to collide with hers in the most spectacular way imaginable. She slipped back into her small apartment, checked on a sleeping Chloe, and fell into a deep, dreamless sleep, completely unaware that her quiet life of survival was over. 6 weeks passed. The memory of that rainy night faded into the background, just another strange chapter in Mia's difficult life. She was fired by Sal, as she'd expected, but Earl the trucker from that night had put in a good word for her with the owner of another, slightly cleaner diner across town called the Silver Bell. The work was the same. The pay was the same. The ache in her feet was the same. Life went on. The real crisis, as always, was Chloe. A severe lung infection had landed her back in the hospital. The new experimental drug the doctors wanted to try wasn't fully covered by their threadbare insurance. The cost was astronomical $50,000 for the initial course of treatment alone. It was a number so vast, so utterly impossible, that Mia couldn't even properly process it. She just saw it as a wall she could never climb. She took on extra shifts, her days blurring into a continuous cycle of work and hospital visits powered by caffeine and sheer desperate will. It was during a busy lunch rush on a Thursday that he walked in. Mia didn't see him at first, just the shadow he cast over her order pad. When she looked up, she saw a man who was so out of place in the Silver Bell that it was almost comical. He wore a dark, impeccably tailored suit that probably cost more than her car. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. His salt and pepper hair was perfectly coiffed, and he had a calm, professional demeanor that radiated quiet authority. He looked like he should be in a boardroom, not a booth with cracked vinyl seating. "Can I help you?" Mia asked, tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "I'm looking for Amelia Evans," the man said, his voice smooth and measured. "You found her. Table for one." "No, thank you. My name is Marcus Vance. I'm the Chief of Staff for Mr. Alexander Sterling. He would be very grateful if you would grant him a few moments of your time. He'd like to meet you." The name meant nothing to Mia. "Meet me?" Why, she asked, suspicion coloring her tone. Salesmen and debt collectors were the only people who ever sought her out. "It's a personal matter, a matter of great importance to him." He sent a car. Marcus gestured discreetly towards the window. Parked at the curb was a sleek black sedan with tinted windows, the kind of car you only see in movies. Mia's co-worker, a bubbly redhead named Jenna, gawked from behind the counter. "Mia, who is that?" she mouthed. Mia felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her stomach. "I'm working. I can't just leave." "Your manager has already been spoken to," Marcus said patiently. "You will be compensated for your lost wages for the entire day. Please, Ms. Evans. It would mean a great deal to my employer." Curiosity warred with a deep-seated distrust of anything that seemed too good to be true. But the mention of lost wages was a powerful lure. One day's pay without the work, that was 8 hours she could spend at the hospital with Chloe. "Fine," she said, untying her apron. 5 minutes. The car was silent and smelled of rich leather. They drove not to an office, but to the most exclusive hotel in the city. The Grand Majestic, a place Mia had only ever seen from the outside. They didn't go through the lobby, but used a private elevator that opened directly into a sprawling penthouse suite. The view of the city skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows was breathtaking. And there, standing by the window looking out over the city, was a man. He was tall and lean, dressed in expensive casual wear. He turned as they entered, and Mia saw a handsome, intense face with sharp blue eyes that seemed to see right through her. A faint, almost invisible scar traced a line near his temple. He moved with a slight stiffness, leaning almost imperceptibly on a sleek, modern-looking cane. "Miss Evans," he said, his voice a low, resonant baritone. "Thank you for coming. I'm Alexander Sterling." Mia stood awkwardly by the door, feeling small and out of place. "The man in the suit said you wanted to see me. I don't understand why." Alexander gestured to one of the plush white sofas. "Please sit." He waited until she had perched nervously on the edge of the cushion before continuing. 6 weeks ago, on the night of October the 28th, I was in a car accident. A drunk driver ran a red light. My car was totaled. I was in bad shape. He paused, his eyes holding hers. I was brought to Northwood General. I'd lost a great deal of blood. My blood type is O negative, which is rare enough, but I also have a complex antibody profile that makes finding a compatible donor exceptionally difficult. The doctors told me later that they had almost given up hope. The pieces clicked into place in Mia's mind. The late-night call, the hospital, the apheresis machine. Her breath hitched. "That was you," she whispered, her eyes wide. He nodded slowly. "That was me. The doctors told me a young woman came in the middle of the night, donated 2 units of red blood cells, and left without leaving a name or asking for anything in return. My team has spent the last month trying to find you. Marcus is very good at his job." Mia was speechless. The anonymous life she had saved belonged to the man standing before her in a suite that was bigger than her entire apartment building floor. She had imagined a truck driver, a teacher, a regular person. Not this. I'm glad you're okay, she finally managed to say. Okay is a mild understatement. Alexander said, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. I am alive, and I am alive because of you. He walked over to a polished mahogany desk and picked up a checkbook. I know you refused compensation at the hospital, and I respect that, but I cannot in good conscience allow an act of such magnitude to go unrewarded. I want to give you this. It's a small token of my gratitude. He wrote quickly and slid a check across the coffee table toward her. Mia glanced down at it. The number written on the line made her stomach lurch. $100,000. It was more money than she had ever seen. It was Chloe's treatment. It was a way out. It was the answer to her prayers. Every desperate, exhausted part of her screamed to take it to run to the hospital and throw it down on the billing counter like a triumphant warrior. But another part of her, the part that had walked out of the hospital that night without asking for a dime, recoiled. She looked from the check to Alexander Sterling's intense, searching gaze. He was watching her, waiting. It felt like a test. Slowly, deliberately, she pushed the check back across the table. Mr. Sterling, I appreciate the offer. I really do, she said, her voice shaking slightly but firm. But I told the doctor I didn't do it for money, and I meant it. I'm not a hero. I was in a position to help, so I did. That's all. Knowing you're alive and well, that's all the reward I need. Alexander stared at her, his expression shifting from polite gratitude to genuine, undisguised astonishment. He had built an empire on transactions, on understanding what people wanted and how to give it to them for a price. His world was filled with people who were constantly angling for a piece of his fortune. He had expected her to be grateful, perhaps to even ask for more. He had not expected this. He had not expected pure, unadulterated integrity. For the first time since she had walked into the room, Alexander Sterling smiled. It was a small, quiet smile, but it transformed his face, erasing some of the tension from his eyes. You, he said, his voice soft with discovery, are a very interesting woman, Amelia Evans. He didn't know the half of it. He didn't know about Chloe about the bills, about the crushing weight of her life. He didn't know that she had just turned down her only miracle. And Mia, sitting in that opulent suite, had the terrifying feeling that by refusing his money, she had just made herself infinitely more valuable to him. The game, she realized with a jolt of fear, had just begun. Mia returned to her life, feeling as though she had just woken from a bizarre dream. The encounter with Alexander Sterling replayed in her mind the lavish suite, the intensity of his gaze, the staggering sum on the check she had pushed away. She told no one. How could she explain it? How could she explain to Jenna, or even to Chloe, that she had turned down a fortune? It felt like madness. The reality of her decision hit hard the next day at the hospital. Chloe was having a bad day. Her breathing labored her face pale. Dr. Peters, Chloe's pulmonologist, pulled Mia aside into the hallway. The infection is resistant to the standard antibiotics. Mia, he said, his voice gentle but grave. The new drug Trikafta isn't just an option anymore. It's a necessity. It could be a complete game changer for her. We need to start the paperwork, and that means dealing with the financials. Mia's throat closed up. I don't have it, Dr. Peters. I can't get that kind of money. There are hospital financing plans, charitable foundations we can apply to, but it all takes time, Mia. Time that Chloe may not have in abundance. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Time that Chloe may not have. Mia felt a wave of nausea. Had her pride signed her sister's death warrant? She thought of the check, of the clean, crisp paper that could have solved everything. The weight of her choice pressed down on her, crushing her. 2 days later, the black sedan appeared again. This time, it was parked outside her apartment building as she returned from a grueling double shift. Marcus Vance got out of the driver's seat, his expression as serene as ever. "Miss Evans," he said, opening the rear door. "Mr. Sterling would like to see you again. He is adamant." This time, Mia didn't argue. A sliver of desperate hope she hated to acknowledge had taken root in her heart. She got in the car. They didn't go to the hotel. Instead, the car drove through the gates of a sprawling estate in the most exclusive part of the city, a place of old money and high walls. The Sterling mansion was a magnificent stone edifice that looked more like a museum than a home. Alexander was waiting for her in a vast library, surrounded by thousands of leather-bound books. He wasn't leaning on his cane today, and seemed to move with more ease. He dismissed Marcus with a nod, leaving them alone. The room was silent, except for the ticking of a grandfather clock in the corner. "Thank you for coming back, Amelia," he said. He didn't offer her a seat immediately. Instead, he studied her, his blue eyes analytical. "I've had my team look into you." Mia stiffened. "You investigated me. I am a man who deals in facts, not assumptions." He replied, his tone matter-of-fact, not apologetic. "I know about your sister Chloe. I know about her condition, the hospital bills, the experimental treatment plant she needs. I know you are her sole guardian, and that you work 60 hours a week to barely keep your heads above water. Which brings me back to my original question. Why did you refuse the money?" The question was direct, stripping away all pretense. Mia felt a surge of anger mixed with shame. "My sister's situation is none of your business," she snapped. "And I refused the money because my helping you had nothing to do with my problems. It wasn't a transaction. It was the right thing to do. I didn't want your pity, and I don't want it now. It isn't pity I'm offering. Alexander, said his voice, lowering. He finally gestured for her to sit in one of the large leather armchairs opposite his desk. I am offering a proposal, a solution, for both of us. Mia eyed him warily. What kind of proposal? Alexander leaned forward, his hands clasped on the desk. My company, Sterling Enterprises, is currently the target of a hostile takeover. It's being led by my cousin, Damien Blackwood. He's ruthless, and he's using a particular clause in our company's founding charter against me. He paused, letting the information sink in. The charter, written by my grandfather, contains what is colloquially known as a morality clause. It states that the CEO must be a person of unimpeachable character and stability. Damien is painting me as a reckless, solitary workaholic, a man with no life outside the boardroom, a narrative that my recent near-fatal accident has only amplified. He's arguing to the board that my singular focus makes me a liability, that I'm unstable. What does this have to do with me? Mia asked, completely lost. Here it came, the twist she never could have anticipated. He is petitioning for a vote of no confidence at the annual shareholder meeting in 6 months. To secure my position and the legacy my father built, I need to present an image of unimpeachable stability. I need to demonstrate that I have a life outside of work, a personal life. I need a wife. Mia's jaw dropped. She stared at him, certain she had misheard. A wife? You're joking. I have never been more serious in my life, Alexander said, his eyes boring into hers. I am proposing a marriage of convenience, a contractual marriage. We would be wedded for a period of 1 year. Publicly, we would be portrayed as a whirlwind romance, the billionaire who fell for the down-to-earth woman who saved his life. It's a story the media and the board will devour. Privately, we would lead separate lives. It would be a business arrangement, pure and simple. He let that bombshell settle before delivering the final devastating blow. In return for your participation, he continued, his voice, even I will not just pay for Chloe's current treatment. I will establish a private, irrevocable trust in her name. It will be funded with enough capital to cover all of her medical expenses, treatments, and living costs for the rest of her life. The best doctors, the best facilities, anything she ever needs. Furthermore, at the conclusion of our 1-year contract upon a quiet, no-fault divorce, you will receive a settlement of $10 million, enough to ensure that neither of you will ever have to worry about money again. Mia felt the air leave her lungs. It was a devil's bargain wrapped in a lifeline. He was asking her to sell a year of her life, to sell her name, her identity in exchange for her sister's future. It was cold. It was calculating. It was deeply, profoundly insulting. And it was the only real choice she had. You want to buy me, she whispered, the words tasting like ash. You want to rent me as a wife to fix your business problems. I want to form a mutually beneficial partnership. He corrected, though the coldness of the term offered no comfort. You are in an impossible situation. I am in a precarious one. I am offering you a way out that also provides me with what I need, and you are uniquely qualified. The story is perfect. It's authentic, because the foundational element, you saving my life, is true. No one would question it. More importantly, I know you can't be bought with a simple check. You proved that. Your integrity is your greatest asset, and ironically, it's the very thing I need to borrow. Mia stood up, her legs trembling. She walked to the window, looking out at the perfectly manicured lawns. It was a world of impossible wealth and calculated moves, a chess game where she was being offered the role of a queen, but knew she was only a pawn. She thought of Chloe's tired smile, of the beeping machines, of Dr. Peter's grave face. Time that she may not have. "This is insane," she breathed. "Is it?" Alexander's voice was closer now. He had come to stand a few feet behind her. "Is it more insane than watching your sister suffer because you can't afford the medicine that could save her?" "I am not a romantic, Amelia. I am a pragmatist. I am offering you a practical solution to an emotional problem. I am offering you your sister's life. All you have to do is say yes." The choice was monstrous. Her dignity or Chloe's health, her freedom or Chloe's future. He had backed her into a corner, using her own desperation as the cage. "I need to think," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I need to talk to my sister." "Of course," Alexander said, retreating back to his desk, his victory almost assured. "Take 48 hours. The offer stands. And, Amelia, when you consider your choices, be as pragmatic as I am." Mia left the mansion in a daze, the weight of the billion-dollar question pressing down on her, knowing that whatever she chose, her life and the life of her sister would never be the same. The conversation with Chloe was one of the hardest of Mia's life. She sat on the edge of her sister's hospital bed, the sterile smell of the room a stark backdrop for the outrageous proposal she was about to lay out. She explained everything. The accident, Alexander Sterling, his corporate battle, and the contract. Chloe, despite her physical weakness, possessed a fierce spirit. Her reaction was immediate and vehement. "No, Mia. Absolutely not," she said, her voice raspy but firm, pushing herself up on her elbows. "You can't do that. You can't sell yourself for me. It's medieval. I would rather anything than have you sacrifice your happiness like that." "It's not about my happiness, Chloe," Mia argued, her own voice cracking. "It's about your health. It's about your future. This isn't just about the Trikafta. It's about everything forever. No more worrying about bills. No more choosing between medicine and rent. A normal life for you." "What about a normal life for you?" Chloe shot back, tears welling in her eyes. "A life where you get to fall in love for real. Where you get married because you want to, not because some rich guy needs a prop. This isn't a life, Mia. It's a prison sentence." They argued for an hour, their conversation filled with tears and frustration. But in the end, it was the reality of their situation that silenced Chloe's protests. That evening, a coughing fit left Chloe breathless and terrified, requiring a nurse to administer emergency oxygen. Seeing her sister so fragile, so vulnerable, solidified Mia's decision. Her pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. Chloe's life was not. The next day, she called Marcus Vance. "Tell Mr. Sterling I accept," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "But I have conditions." The meeting to sign the contract took place in a sterile downtown law office filled with men in dark suits. Alexander was there, as was Marcus and a team of lawyers. Mia felt like a lamb, being led to a very expensive, legally binding slaughter. "My conditions are these," Mia stated, her voice shaking, but resolute as she faced Alexander. "First, the trust for Chloe is to be established and fully funded before any public announcement is made. I want my sister's doctor to confirm receipt of funds for her entire treatment plan. Second, our private lives remain completely separate. No. Physical expectations. This is a business deal. Third, if you break the spirit of this contract, if you are cruel or disrespectful, or try to control my life outside of our public duties. I have the right to walk away, and the trust for Chloe remains intact." Alexander listened, his expression unreadable. His lawyers shifted uncomfortably, but he silenced them with a look. He considered her terms for a long moment. "Agreed," he said finally. "My lawyers will add the addendum. Your terms are reasonable." Mia signed the thick document, her signature looking small and insignificant next to the imposing script of Alexander Sterling. As her pen left the paper, she felt a profound sense of loss. She had just traded her name, her freedom, her very self for her sister's future. The transformation was immediate and jarring. The story, carefully crafted by Alexander's PR team, was leaked to a major financial newspaper. Reclusive billionaire Alexander Sterling finds love with the woman who saved his life. The narrative was perfect. It was a fairy tale, and the world devoured it. Paparazzi began to shadow her. Her face was on the cover of magazines. The tired waitress from the Silver Bell was gone. In her place was Amelia Evans, the mysterious, beautiful fiancée of one of the world's richest men. She moved into the Sterling mansion. It wasn't a home. It was a gilded court. Staff moved silently through the cavernous halls. Every meal was a formal affair. Her wardrobe was replaced with designer clothes picked out by a stylist. She was taught which fork to use, how to descend a staircase for maximum effect, and how to smile placidly, while ignoring shouted questions from reporters. The most formidable obstacle was not the press or the etiquette lessons, but Alexander's mother, Evelyn Sterling. A formidable matriarch with ice water in her veins, Evelyn saw Mia not as a savior, but as a cunning, gold-digging interloper. "I know what you are," Evelyn told her coolly during their first meeting in the mansion's pristine drawing room. "Don't think for a second that this little Cinderella act fools me. Alexander may be blinded by his gratitude, but I see you clearly. You will be watched. Every move you make. One misstep, and I will personally see to it that you are cast out with nothing." Mia, however, was forged in the fires of real hardship. Evelyn's threats were cutting, but they were nothing compared to the fear of losing Chloe. She met the older woman's gaze with a quiet resolve that seemed to unsettle Evelyn more than any angry retort would have. "I am here for Alexander." "Mrs. Sterling," Mia said simply, "and I intend to hold up my end of the bargain." Her relationship with Alexander was the strangest part of her new life. They were two strangers, bound by a contract, living under the same roof. Their interactions were stilted and awkward, confined to public appearances and staged photo opportunities. They would hold hands for the cameras, their touch professional and cold. They would share a brief, chaste kiss on a balcony, the crowd below cheering while they both stared dead-eyed over each other's shoulders. Yet slowly, cracks began to form in the facade. Late one night, unable to sleep, Mia wandered into the vast library and found Alexander there, poring over company reports, a glass of whiskey untouched beside him. The weight of his world was visible on his face. "You should be sleeping," she said softly from the doorway. He looked up, startled. "So should you." "The ghosts in this house are too loud," she replied with a small, sad smile. He understood. He gestured to the chair opposite him. For the first time, they talked, not as business partners, but as two people. She told him about Chloe's love for painting, about the silly jokes they shared. He told her about his father, the pressure of his legacy, and the constant, lonely battle against men like his cousin Damien. She saw a flicker of the man behind the billionaire, a man who was tired, burdened, and profoundly lonely. He, in turn, saw beyond the waitress, beyond the contractual wife, to the resilient, fiercely loving woman who had walked into a hospital in the middle of the night for a complete stranger. Their public appearances became less stilted. A genuine laugh she shared with him at a charity gala was captured by photographers. A moment when he instinctively shielded her from an aggressive reporter went viral. The public saw a budding romance. They began to feel the stirrings of something dangerously real. The threat of Damien Blackwood loomed large. He was not fooled by the fairy tale. He had his own investigators, digging into Mia's past, searching for any dirt he could use to expose the marriage as a fraud. He found nothing scandalous. Mia's life had been one of quiet, desperate work, but he uncovered the full extent of Chloe's medical history and its timing relative to the engagement announcement. It was circumstantial, but in the hands of a skilled corporate raider, it could be a powerful weapon. The climax was set to occur at the Sterling Enterprises annual charity ball, the biggest social event of the year, and just 2 weeks before the crucial shareholder vote. Damien planned to make his move there to publicly question the convenient timing of the marriage in front of the company's most powerful stakeholders and the press. The night of the ball, Maya was a vision in a sapphire gown, alone from a top designer. The sterling diamonds around her neck felt as heavy as a chain. She stood by Alexander's side, smiling, nodding, playing her part. She could feel Damien's eyes on her from across the grand ballroom, a shark circling its prey. Just as Damien began to make his way towards the stage to make a special announcement, a commotion erupted near the entrance. A young woman was being helped into the ballroom by a pair of nurses. She was in a wheelchair, but her face was glowing with health and happiness. It was Chloe. Mia's heart stopped. Alexander had arranged it without telling her. Chloe, now on Trikafta for over a month, was looking better than she had in years. She had insisted on coming on seeing her sister shine. Mia rushed to her side, tears streaming down her face, all thoughts of the ball and the contract forgotten. She knelt by Chloe's wheelchair, her hands clasped with her sister's. Alexander came to stand beside them, placing a gentle protective hand on Mia's shoulder. The entire ballroom watched, captivated. They didn't see a billionaire and his contractual wife. They saw a family. They saw genuine, unscripted love and relief. Damien Blackwood stood frozen near the stage, his planned attack completely neutered. How could he attack a man who had not only found love, but had also saved his fiancée's dying sister? He would look like a monster. The battle was over before it had even begun. He turned and slipped out of the ballroom, defeated. Later that evening, on a quiet terrace overlooking the gardens, Alexander turned to Mia. The air between them was different now, charged with the unsaid emotions of the night. "I didn't tell you she was coming," he said softly. "I wanted to surprise you. And I wanted to see you happy." "Thank you, Mia," whispered her voice, thick with emotion. "That was the greatest gift anyone has ever given me." "No," Alexander said, his blue eyes intense, searching her face. "The greatest gift was given to me 6 months ago by a woman who asked for nothing in return." He took a step closer. The carefully constructed walls between them, the clauses of the contract, the entire artifice of their arrangement crumbled into dust. He saw her, and for the first time, she truly saw him. The 1-year contract wasn't over yet, but standing there under the moonlight, They both knew it was no longer relevant. The deal had been fulfilled, but the story was just beginning. And the next proposal he made wouldn't involve lawyers or clauses. It would involve a question of the heart. The morning after the charity ball, the Sterling mansion was unnervingly quiet. The usual hum of a busy household was replaced by a soft, respectful hush. The staff moved with a new deference, their glances towards Mia no longer filled with just professional courtesy, but with something akin to awe. The story of Chloe's dramatic appearance had already become house legend. Mia woke up in her cavernous bedroom feeling like she had surfaced from a deep-sea dive. The pressure was gone. For the first time in months, her chest didn't feel tight with anxiety. The contract, the pretense, the fear of Damien Blackwood. It had all evaporated under the bright lights of the ballroom, incinerated by a single, genuine moment of familial love. She came downstairs to find Alexander already in the breakfast room, but he wasn't reading the financial news on his tablet as usual. He was just staring into a cup of coffee, a small, thoughtful smile on his face. He looked up as she entered, and his smile widened. It was a real smile, one that reached his sharp blue eyes and softened the rigid lines of his face. "Good morning, Amelia," he said, his voice softer than she was used to. "Good morning," she replied, pouring herself a coffee, the silence between them no longer awkward but comfortable. As she sat down, Evelyn Sterling entered the room. Mia instinctively braced herself for a cutting remark or a cold dismissal. Instead, Alexander's mother paused, her gaze flickering between her son and Mia. She saw the easy silence, the genuine smile on Alexander's face, the relaxed set of Mia's shoulders. She opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it. With a curt, almost imperceptible nod, she collected her tea and exited to the solarium, leaving them alone. It wasn't an apology, but it was a surrender. The war for the Sterling mansion was over. Alexander cleared his throat. "I've cancelled my morning meetings." Mia looked at him surprised. "You never cancel meetings. There are more important things today," he said. He leaned forward, his expression earnest. "We've spent months performing for the public. We've been to galas, fundraisers, and board meetings. But I don't think we've ever had a real conversation that wasn't under duress. I'd like to change that. I want to know what Amelia Evans does on a day off when she's not saving a life or a company." Mia felt a warmth spread through her chest. I don't get many days off." "Then let's pretend this is your first one. What do you want to do?" "Anything. No press, no staff. Just us." She thought for a moment. She didn't want a fancy restaurant or a shopping spree. She wanted something real. "There's a park on the other side of town by Miller's Pond. My parents used to take me and Chloe there. We'd feed the ducks. I haven't been in years." An hour later, the billionaire CEO, dressed in jeans and a simple grey sweater that Mia had never seen him wear, was standing beside her at a muddy pond, holding a paper bag full of breadcrumbs. The sleek black sedan was parked out of sight. For the first time, they were just a man and a woman, standing under the autumn sun. They walked for hours, their conversation flowing easily. He asked her about her dreams before her life was consumed by Chloe's illness. She admitted she had wanted to be a teacher, maybe for elementary school kids. She had a knack for making complicated things seem simple. In turn, she asked him if he ever wanted to be anything other than a CEO. He confessed that as a boy, he was fascinated with astronomy. He'd had a telescope and would spend hours mapping constellations, dreaming of distant galaxies. "It's hard to see the stars from a boardroom," he said with a touch of melancholy. In that simple, honest exchange, they learned more about each other than they had in all their months of scripted intimacy. He saw the brilliant, nurturing woman whose dreams had been put on hold. She saw the thoughtful, curious boy who still existed beneath the armor of the tycoon. The line between them, the one defined by a legal document, vanished completely. They returned to the mansion as the sun was setting. The final hurdle, the shareholder meeting, was scheduled for the following week. It was now a formality, but it was the event their entire contract had been built around. At the meeting, Alexander was a different man. He stood before the board and shareholders not as the ruthless, calculating leader they knew, but as a man transformed. He presented the record profits and successful strategies, but then he went off script. For years, I have measured the value of this company in stock prices and market share, he said, his eyes finding Mia, who sat in the front row. I believed that was the only metric of success. But I was wrong. True value lies not just in our assets, but in our integrity. It lies in our perspective. It lies in understanding that the most valuable things in life, loyalty, kindness, sacrifice, are the things that can't be bought or sold. He spoke of a future for Sterling Enterprises that was not just profitable, but principled. The board, moved by his passion and the overwhelming narrative of his personal transformation, gave him a thunderous standing ovation. The victory was absolute. The contract was fulfilled. That evening, Mia stood in the library, the place where he had first made his audacious proposal. She was looking out the window, wondering what came next. The year wasn't over, but her purpose there was. Was she supposed to just leave? She heard him enter the room. When she turned, she saw he was holding a document in his hands. It was their contract. "It's done," he said softly. "Damien has been removed from the board. The company is secure. You held up your end of the bargain perfectly." He walked to the large mahogany desk and laid the contract down. "The trust for Chloe is permanent and ironclad. The settlement we discussed, the $10 million, has been transferred to a private account in your name. Your obligation is over Amelia." He looked at her, his expression deeply serious. "You are free. You can walk out of this house tonight and never look back. You can go to college, become a teacher, buy a house by that pond. Give Chloe the life you've always dreamed of for her. You owe me nothing." He paused, and the air in the room grew thick with unspoken emotion. He picked up the contract, and with a deliberate, powerful motion, he ripped it in two, then in four, letting the pieces fall onto the polished wood of his desk. Mia's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. The end of the arrangement. "But I hope you don't," he whispered, his voice cracking slightly. He walked around the desk until he was standing in front of her. "I came to you with a business proposition, when what I really needed was a lifeline. You did more than save my company, Mia. You saved me. You showed me what it means to live to care for someone more than yourself. You showed me the stars again." Slowly, to her utter astonishment, Alexander Sterling knelt down on one knee. He reached into his pocket, but he didn't pull out a gaudy, oversized diamond. He produced a simple, elegant platinum band with a single perfect sapphire that exactly matched the color of her gown from the ball. "This is not a contract," he said, his voice thick with emotion as he looked up at her. "This is not a proposal to secure a company. This is a proposal from a man who has fallen completely and irrevocably in love with you. Amelia Evans. You are the most interesting, compassionate, and strongest woman I have ever known. Would you do me the profound honor of being my wife, my partner, my best friend? For real this time?" Tears streamed freely down Mia's face, but for the first time in a long time, They were tears of pure, unadulterated joy. The choice was no longer impossible. It was the easiest, most obvious choice in the world. Yes, she breathed a laugh, bubbling up through the tears. Yes, Alex. My answer is yes. In the end, it wasn't about a contract or a company. It was about a connection forged in a moment of selfless crisis. Amelia's journey took her from a greasy spoon diner to a magnificent mansion, from a life of quiet desperation to one of unimaginable complexity. But her greatest discovery wasn't wealth or status. It was realizing that her greatest strength, her integrity, was something that could never be bought or sold. Alexander, the man who had everything, learned that the one thing he truly needed, genuine human kindness, was priceless. Their story reminds us that the best parts of life are never transactional. What would you do if you were faced with an impossible choice between your principles and your family's survival? If this story of unexpected love and sacrifice touched your heart, please show your support. Hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that good deeds never go unnoticed. And most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more real-life dramas that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Your support helps us bring these incredible stories to life. Click subscribe now, and we'll see you in the next video.